War doesn't always begin with a declaration. Sometimes it begins with a blip on a radar screen, a shadow in the clouds, a fleet appearing on the horizon, and a decision made in seconds. Because when war moves into the sky and across the sea, it becomes faster than fear. Tonight, we're diving into 7 battles, real moments in history, where airplanes and warships didn't just fight, they rewrote civilization. And the terrifying part? In many of these battles, the side that won wasn't stronger. They were simply faster, smarter, and willing to gamble everything. We begin in the Pacific, where the future of World War II changed in a single morning. June 4th, 1942. The ocean is calm, but beneath that calm is a trap. The Japanese Imperial Navy is moving toward a tiny island called Midway, planning to crush American forces and finish the job started at Pearl Harbor. But the United States is waiting, not with more ships, but with better information. American codebreakers have been reading Japanese messages. They know the attack is coming. They know the time. They know the direction. And in war, knowledge is a weapon sharper than steel. On the morning of the battle, aircraft carriers become floating cities of firepower. Planes roar off decks like angry birds. Torpedo bombers skim low over waves, diving straight into walls of anti-aircraft fire. Pilots disappear into smoke before they can even release their payloads. And for a moment, it looks like a massacre. American torpedo squadrons are shredded, one after another. Men die in the open sky, with nowhere to hide. But their sacrifice does something crucial. It drags Japanese fighter planes down to sea level. It pulls their defenses out of position. And up above, American dive bombers are arriving. They break through the clouds. And what they see below is a sight that would haunt any admiral. Japanese carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, packed with planes, fuel, and bombs, all sitting exposed on deck. Because the Japanese are rearming their aircraft, switching weapons, reorganizing, preparing for the next strike. That's when the sky opens. In minutes, bombs slam into the carriers. Fire erupts. Explosions chain through hangars. Fuel ignites like gasoline rain. And the most powerful navy on Earth suddenly looks mortal. By the end of the day, Japanese carriers are lost. The backbone of Japan's carrier force gone. Midway becomes the turning point of the Pacific War. Not because America had more strength, but because timing, intelligence, and a single window of vulnerability changed everything. And after Midway, the question isn't, can America survive? How far will America push back? But the next battle is different. Because the next battle isn't about carriers in open ocean. It's about the sky itself, becoming a battlefield above an island that refused to fall. Britain stands alone. Hitler's armies have conquered Europe. And now, the only thing between Nazi Germany and total domination is an island. To invade Britain, Germany needs one thing first: control of the air. So the Luftwaffe comes. Day after day, wave after wave. Bombers, fighters, firestorms over cities. And the British respond with everything they have. Spitfires, hurricanes, radar stations, command centers. In the Battle of Britain, it isn't just pilots fighting. It's a system. Radar detects incoming raids. Controllers guide fighters like chess pieces. And in the sky, young men fight at speeds where one mistake means death. This is the moment the modern air war is born. And Britain holds. Not because they outnumber Germany, but because they outlasted them. And by surviving, Britain becomes the launch pad for everything that comes later. But now, we shift from the sky to the sea again. Because the next battle proves a terrifying truth. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't a battleship. It's a submarine you never see. And the ocean becomes a graveyard before anyone even realizes the war has changed. The next battle doesn't happen under sunlight. It happens beneath the waves. Because in the Atlantic, the ocean wasn't just water. It was a hunting ground. World War II turns the sea lanes into lifelines. Britain survives on supplies, food, fuel, weapons, shipped across thousands of miles. So Germany targets the one thing Britain can't replace quickly. Target. And the weapon they use isn't a battleship. It's a shadow, a U-boat. German submarines stalk the Atlantic like wolves. They don't need to destroy navies. They only need to destroy the ships that keep a nation alive. A convoy at night looks like safety, dozens of ships traveling together. But in darkness, convoys become targets. A single torpedo hits a merchant ship, then another. Then another. Explosions flare like brief suns on the horizon. Men jump into freezing water. And the worst part? The convoy often can't stop. Because if it stops, it dies. The Battle of the Atlantic isn't cinematic in the traditional sense. It's psychological terror. A war of patience. A war where sailors stare into black water, knowing something unseen is watching. And for a time, Germany is winning. Ships sink faster than they can be built. Britain's survival feels like a countdown. But then the tide begins to turn. Radar improves. Sonar evolves. Convoy escorts become smarter. Aircraft begin patrolling farther and farther from land, closing the air gap where U-boats once hunted freely. And when intelligence breakthroughs and code-breaking expose U-boat positions, the wolves begin to get hunted. The Atlantic doesn't become safe overnight. But slowly, the balance shifts. And that shift is one of the reasons the Allies can eventually invade Europe. Because without control of the sea, there is no D-Day. Now we jump to a moment where the sky and sea collide again. In the most shocking way possible. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor. A calm morning in Hawaii. Battleships anchored peacefully. Sailors thinking about breakfast. Not history. Then the sky changes. Japanese aircraft appear like a storm. Bombs fall. Torpedoes slice into the harbor. Smoke rises. Ships roll. The American Pacific Fleet is hit hard. And for a moment, it looks like the United States has been crippled. But there's a detail that becomes crucial later. The aircraft carriers aren't there. The future of naval war isn't in battleships anymore. It's in carriers. And that means Pearl Harbor is devastating. But not decisive. It awakens something larger than strategy. It awakens American resolve. Because after Pearl Harbor, the war is no longer far away. It becomes personal. Now we move to a battle that proves just how brutal the Pacific will become. October 1944. The Battle of Leyte Gulf. Often called the largest naval battle in history. Here, the sea becomes crowded with fleets. Carriers launch waves of aircraft. Battleships trade thunder. Destroyers race like blades through smoke. And the stakes are enormous. If Japan can crush the American invasion fleet, the war changes. But the battle becomes chaos. Fleets misidentify each other. Admirals make decisions with incomplete information. Small groups of ships face impossible odds. And in one of the most legendary moments of naval history, a tiny American force of escort carriers and destroyers charges into far larger Japanese ships. Outgunned. Outnumbered. But they attack anyway. Torpedoes fired. Guns blazing. Because sometimes courage doesn't win by destroying the enemy. It wins by refusing to break. And the Japanese, shocked by the aggression, hesitate. They pull back. The invasion survives. And Japan's ability to stop the Allies collapses. But the war is turning desperate, which leads to one of the darkest evolutions of air combat. Kamikaze attacks. Pilots turning themselves into weapons. Aircraft diving like missiles into ships. A terrifying reminder that in war, technology and desperation can merge into something almost unimaginable. And now we end with a battle that didn't just change the war. It changed the world after the war. Because the final battle in our story isn't about who had the biggest fleet. It's about who had the bombers, who had the reach, who could strike without being touched. And that brings us to a moment when warfare becomes global, and the sky becomes the new frontier of destruction. Because after World War II, the world learns a terrifying lesson. The sky is no longer just a battlefield. It's a launch pad. And the sea is no longer just territory. It's a platform. Aircraft carriers become moving air bases. Bombers become long-range threats. And suddenly, wars don't need borders. They only need range. That's why the final turning point of modern warfare isn't just one battle. It's a new kind of power, air power. During the Cold War, the most important battles are sometimes the ones that almost happen, because nations are no longer fighting only for victory. They're fighting to avoid annihilation. Radar screens become the front line. Pilots sit in cockpits with nuclear weapons behind them. Submarines carry missiles that can erase cities. And a single mistake, one wrong identification, one wrong signal, could start a war no one can stop. That's the true evolution of war at sea and in the sky. It becomes a test of nerves, because the stronger the weapons become, the more fragile peace becomes. Now step back and look at what these battles have in common. Midway proved timing can defeat power. The Battle of Britain proved survival can defeat terror. The Atlantic proved unseen warfare can starve an empire. Pearl Harbor proved a surprise strike can awaken a superpower. Leyte Gulf proved courage can change outcomes even against overwhelming odds. And the Cold War era proved the ultimate weapon is restraint, because the cost of failure became everything. So when you watch war footage, aircraft screaming through clouds, ships firing into smoke, it's easy to see only the spectacle. But history sees something else. It sees turning points. It sees moments when the world could have gone one way, and instead went another. Because the outcome of a battle isn't just numbers and explosions. It's what the battle unlocks afterward. Midway unlocked America's push across the Pacific. Britain's survival unlocked the liberation of Europe. The Atlantic unlocked the ability to move armies across oceans. Pearl Harbor unlocked the full industrial force of the United States. Leyte Gulf unlocked the collapse of Japan's naval power. And the Cold War unlocked a new global reality, where the sky and the sea held the power to end civilization. And that is why battles in the air and at sea feel so haunting, because there is no shelter. In the sky, there is nowhere to hide. At sea, there is nowhere to run. When your engine fails, you fall. When your ship breaks, the ocean takes it. And yet, men still climbed into cockpits, still stood on decks, still launched into storms of steel. Not always because they wanted war, but because history dragged them into it. So the next time you see a fighter plane slicing through clouds, or a carrier deck launching jets into the horizon, remember what you're really seeing. Not just machines. You're seeing the modern battlefield. The place where seconds decide centuries. And where a single decision can reshape the world.